going on, people? This is UFC Fight Night Vegas 105. What had happened was, just going to briefly go over some of our picks and some of the ones that hit, some of the ones that didn't. And yeah, so first fight we had Talita Alencar. If you watched my early breakdown, I did have Talita Alencar. I ended up flipping to Demopoulos. I thought that her physicality was just going to be too much for Talita, but I was wrong. I was extremely wrong. Talita just used her wrestling and kept her on the mat and worked for submissions. Surprised she didn't get one. Yeah, Vanessa Demopoulos didn't look as big and strong as I thought she was going to. I should have stuck with that Talita Alencar pick. But in hindsight, you know, it is what it is. Then we had Martin Budai versus Uran Baldiev. Yeah, I made a quick little video saying that Budai was going to win. He was very briefly opened up as an underdog, if anyone was able to get that. I did not. I missed it. It didn't last very long. He beat a guy that was just a little bit outsized. Didn't have the mass. But I like Baldiev. I actually think he's going to do pretty good. It just, circumstances were not in his favor. So let's see how he looks at 205, where he belongs. Victor Henry, Pedro Falcao. It was a close fight on paper. It was a close fight when we saw it. The better man won. I ended up taking the Henry pick. That was another fight that I flipped on, and I'm glad I did. Luma Lukbumi. I said that she needs a top 15 after this. I think she's ranked 17 right now. But after that performance, though it was good and though she clearly won, you know, being a minus 1,000 favorite, she should have got a finish and she should have got one early. Let's look to give her someone like Ketlin Souza, I think, who's like 15 or, you know, somewhere around 15 to 20. And then let's keep pushing her because she is a good fighter and she's always improved. Reese McKee did the damn thing, put a hurting on Daniel Frunza, and I'm happy for him. I love to see this guy win. He seems like a nice guy. He's really dedicated to the game. And yeah, Frunza. I actually was on Frunza. I knew he wasn't technical enough. I knew he wasn't going to have the cardio. I knew he was going to be outmatched, but I thought that Reese McKee would not be able to finish him, and eventually those power shots would end up swaying the judges. We didn't need it. He didn't make it. Took too much damage. Good thing. Good for Reese McKee. Great dog pick. That should have been my... we'll get to that. Diana Barboza. She did what Diana Barboza was always going to do. Easy fight, but at least we got to see the attractive Diana Belbitia on the card, you know, so that made up for some of the lackluster performances that we saw previously on the card. Speaking of lackluster performances, a lot of people were down on Torres Finney. He was a very confident pick for me in this fight. Valentin can't wrestle. If you picked Valentin, I think, you know, of all the bad bets I had on this card, you had the worst because the guy just has nothing on the ground. We've seen that. He's a little bit crafty with his jiu-jitsu, but he's been fighting European guys. He hasn't been fighting American wrestlers. He was always outmatched in this fight. Torres Finney didn't do a lot of damage, and the community really comes after him. But look, man, at the end of the day, you can call whatever you want boring. There are other sports and other things you can watch. In MMA, we have mixed martial arts. And if this was a wrestler versus striking matchup, and wrestling won. And wrestling typically does win. And I think that, you know, you can stall and you know, not do damage, and that is a problem. But at the end of the day, you have an avenue to success, and the other guy can't stop it. The judge that gave that fight to Finney, I can't legally say what I would do to him if I ever came across him, but just know it wouldn't be good. That man's an absolute disgrace, and that's all I got to say about that. And if you thought that Valentin win, you're probably under 20 years old. These new age fans, you know, they have TikTok brain. They just want to see, you know, action, 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 and, you know, go back and watch the old UFC 1, 2, and 3. A lot of those fights, especially, you know, when Gracie's were back in the day, you know, we're more action-packed today than a lot of those fights. Now, there's definitely bangers that have always stood out that we always go to in our memory, but there were a lot of lackluster fights back then, too, probably more. So, you know, I think Finney's a problem. If you can't stop his takedowns, you're probably not going to beat him. Eventually, he will get caught, though, especially being shorter in the division. And that was Valentin's only chance. But Valentin looked pathetic. That being said, I still think Valentin's an exciting guy. I hope they give him one more fight. Give him a striker, and let's see what he can do. Ode Osborne, he beat up my Louis Grouillet pick. In hindsight, I shouldn't have went on a debuting guy. You guys know I always talk about these Dana White Contender Series fighters. I always fade them. But I also am going to fade a guy coming off 3 or 4 losses. I've never been a fan of Osborne. This was more of a pick against him, and it backfired on me. But he looked good. Good for him. Brad Tavares beat Gerald Mearshart. That was my... I hate to say this, but he was my live dog of the week only because Davey Grant pulled out, and I had one day to pick another one. I should have went with Reese McKee. I just thought, why not put my chips on the side of a guy who's been in this spot so many times in cash, who's been in the UFC and has, a lot more wins. He just felt like a more of a sure thing. I thought that Brad was slipping a little bit more than he seemed to be. And Gerald couldn't find the takedowns. I know that Brad is a hard guy to take down, but he's also a guy that's been taken down twice in his last 2 fights. So I was like, surely there's going to be a scramble where Gerald Mearshart can get this fight, and he only needed a few minutes or a few seconds, and he could have got it done. It does count as a live dog of the week, unfortunately, because I did pick him, but know that there were circumstances that led to that, and that Davey Grant was off the card, and that probably was going to cash. I also had my lock as Kennedy Nzechukwu, and he actually got he was off the card as well. So, that kind of screwed me on this. But no excuses. I'm not Alex Pereira. I'm not going to make excuses up here. It is what it is. We'll be back. We're still probably, as far as I know, the best at picking underdogs this year. We've only missed 3. We pick one on every single card. I don't think anybody's doing that. So, let's rebound on UFC 214 or 314. UFC 314. I've already got that one in the bag. I'm pretty sure we're going to bounce back on that. Anyway, Chang Ho Lee, he looked good. Cortez Romnus, I picked him once and he burned me, and he's just too small. He doesn't seem like he seems like a guy who's really good in the gym despite his size, but I don't think he's UFC level. I think they need to cut him. I mean, that was just a disgrace before the weigh-ins, during the fight, everything. And Chang Ho Lee, I'll keep my eye on him. I was kind of down on him at first, but you know what? He looked good. Props to him. Pat Sabatini, this is another fight that I lost pretty big on. I thought Joannis Brito was going to knock him out. But Brito didn't have a chance. Pat Sabatini just kept him on the ground, worked his jiu-jitsu, which we knew he was going to be better at. Excuse me. But we didn't, I'm surprised he didn't find the submission. I did hedge my bet and put Pat Sabatini by sub, and he couldn't even do that. So, good for Sabatini, but nothing to write home about on that performance. And Brito might have been a flash in the pan. I don't really know what's next for him. Well, I guess we'll find out. Lerone Murphy, Josh Emmett. This is the main event, and I got it wrong. That means I have missed, I think, 3 main events now this year. Hate it. But I was never sure. I was never sure on Josh Emmett. I think I made that clear. It was a close fight. That Lerone Murphy was more technical. And all of that showed. Josh even went to the wrestling a bit, which I like to see from Josh, especially an older vet, having a wider range of attacks. But, a lot of people came down on Finney and said he didn't try to finish the fight and it was boring. But, I'm not going to come down on Murphy too much. It was a close fight. I could see 3-2 Emmett, but I'm pretty sure they got it right. I think 3-2 Murphy was the correct decision. But, strikers also stall the fight. Jabbing and leg kicking at range and running the whole time. You see a lot of people do that. Izzy did that many times in his career. So when you're talking about boring fights and you're talking about stalling and not finishing the fight, you've got to look at these strikers too, because they've been doing this for just as long. So it has nothing to do with whether you're wrestling or not. This man did not want to engage, especially in the last 3 rounds. That being said, he did win. He won, so good for him. But, people saying these guys aren't trying to finish the fight. Neither was he. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just comparing. I'm playing devil's advocate for the casuals out there who have such a problem with these wrestlers that don't want to go watch another sport. Anyway, overall, we went, I think we went 8, 10, 11, 12, 8 and 4, or 12. Maybe I think I missed 5 fights, so not very good. Lock did not hit, but there were some circumstances there. Yeah, anyway, so we ended up missing 5 fights on the card, which isn't great. And nobody's more upset about it than me. I've been playing basically off of winnings from last year because I did so good last year. And I'm running low, man. I'm running low. I bet kind of heavy on that fight. That being said, my biggest bets were taken off Grant and Njeku. And I should have just... I knew right then I should have just laid off this card after that disaster. But, you know, I do much better on pay-per-view, so I'm more excited for UFC 314, and I have some great plays. So I hope you'll stick with me. And so we have missed 3 underdogs. We got all the rest of our live dogs are right. And next week, I have got a good one for you. So I appreciate the love, appreciate the hate, appreciate the discourse. And until I see you next time, let's get paid, y'all.